On the morning of the 26th of September 2010, British aid worker Linda Norgrove was travelling through Kunar province in eastern Afghanistan when her two-vehicle convoy was ambushed by a group of armed men affiliated to the Taliban. With little in the way to defend themselves, Linda and 3 of her Afghan colleagues were forced out of their cars at gunpoint and taken as hostages, after which they were moved to a remote location deep into the mountains of Kunar province. In the wake of their kidnapping, a large-scale manhunt was launched to find the 4 individuals, and whilst US Special Operations Forces raided numerous targets across the region in search of Linda and the 3 Afghans, local tribal leaders opened negotiations with the Taliban in the hopes of securing their swift and safe release. Thanks to these negotiations, the 3 Afghan hostages were released unharmed on the 2nd of October 2010, although the Taliban refused to hand over Linda Norgrove on the grounds that she was a British citizen and would thus only be freed as part of a ransom in a prisoner exchange or in the complete withdrawal of British forces from Afghanistan. As these demands were not considered to be realistic by the British government, the effort to find Linda was significantly ramped up, and it was at some point between the 3rd and the 7th of October that a breakthrough was achieved, when a US surveillance aircraft identified 2 neighbouring compounds in Kunar province that were being used by Linda's kidnappers. However, there was a slight problem in that both of these compounds were located on the side of a 2,500 metre high mountain in the Korengal Valley, meaning that any rescue attempt would be fraught with difficulties. British Foreign Secretary William Hague later explained that Linda's captors were tracked to 2 small groups of buildings high in the Korengal Valley in Kunar province, a region of steep mountain valleys and mounting peaks ranging from 8 to 14,000 feet, accessible in most areas only by pack animal or by foot. Any rescue force were required to land on the near vertical incline of a rugged mountainside 8,000 feet in height within a narrow valley, and to assault a series of buildings built into the steep slope on several levels. On the basis of intelligence, analysis and surveillance, it was judged that Linda was being held in the upper group of the 2 groups of buildings. Despite the risks and challenges presented by the terrain, the British government believed that the only way to secure Linda's freedom was through a rescue operation, and after the latest intelligence indicated that the Taliban were planning on moving her across the border into Pakistan, Prime Minister David Cameron authorised the launching of a rescue attempt on the 7th of October 2010. Interestingly though, this operation wasn't to involve a single British soldier, as British military resources in Afghanistan were concentrated in the south of the country in Helmand province, and as a result, it would require a significant logistical effort to move men and equipment over 700 kilometres to execute the operation. As such, it was agreed between British and American commanders that control of the mission should be transferred to the US military, which already had a substantial amount of assets deployed in eastern Afghanistan, which would enable the operation to be launched as soon as possible. Foreign Secretary Hague also noted that US troops had been operating in Kunar province for over 5 years, and so had a good understanding of the terrain and the layout of the region that their British counterparts would have lacked. Accordingly, an entirely American task group was put together to carry out the rescue of Linda Norgrove, which was to be codenamed Operation Anstruther. At the centre of this group was a detachment of Navy SEALs from the Naval Special Warfare Development Group, also known as SEAL Team 6, who were to lead the assault onto the 2 compounds and free the hostage. In support of the SEALs would be a team of US Rangers from the 75th Ranger Regiment, whilst an AC-130 gunship and an MQ-1 Predator drone were to provide air support throughout the mission. Tasked with airlifting the ground troops into the objective would be 2 MH-47 Chinook helicopters of the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment. After a short period of planning, Operation Anstruther commenced in the early morning of the 8th of October 2010, when the American task group took off from Bagram Air Base and flew out over eastern Afghanistan. At around 0300, this force arrived above the objective, with one of the Chinooks approaching the lower of the 2 compounds and dropping its rear ramp so that the assault team of Navy SEALs could fast rope down and onto the designated landing zone. At the same time, the second Chinook held back momentarily to cover the insurgent, during which an onboard sniper team took out 2 enemy fighters who were patrolling the exterior of the lower compound. Not long afterwards, the overhead AC-130 gunship neutralised 2 more insurgents who were trying to flee from the area. Meanwhile, having successfully inserted onto the LZ, the SEALs moved off to clear the first compound, and it was as they approached the building that a 5th enemy fighter suddenly emerged from a nearby gully and began firing at the American troops. Instantly, the SEALs dashed into cover and began returning fire, with one of them throwing a grenade into the gully which killed this 5th insurgent. Thereafter, the assault team continued on and methodically cleared the first compound, but they found no sign of Linda Norgrove inside. With this, the team quickly reassembled, and after handing over responsibility of the building to the US Rangers, the SEALs moved up the mountain to clear the second upper compound. This phase proceeded like clockwork, and within a matter of minutes both the building and the surrounding area had been cleared without incident. However, once again, there was no sign of the hostage. Believing that they had possibly hit the wrong target, the Navy SEALs returned to the lower compound to assess the situation, and it was here that the American troops made a tragic discovery when Linda's body was found lying beside the corpse of the 5th insurgent inside the gully that sat adjacent to the compound. Foreign Secretary William Hague explained that Linda had been taken by her captors into the gully into which the grenade had been thrown and where her body was now discovered. She was examined by the team medics. Linda Norgrove died as a result of penetrating fragmentation injuries to the head and chest. In addition to the injuries mentioned by Secretary Hague, Linda Norgrove had also sustained a bullet wound to one of her legs, although it's not clear whether this was incurred before or during the operation. Nevertheless, after her body was found, the SEALs tried to provide medical treatment to Linda, but sadly there was little that could be done as she was declared deceased on the scene. Shortly afterwards, the American task group exfiltrated out from the area and returned to Bagram Air Base later that morning on the 8th of October 2010. On the 14th of October, Linda Norgrove was repatriated to the UK by the Royal Air Force. Following the operation's conclusion, the Navy SEALs involved in the raid gave their accounts of what had unfolded, and it was based off of these accounts that the US military and the British government issued statements in which they claimed that Linda Norgrove had lost her life as a result of an insurgent detonating his suicide bomb vest. For 3 days, this was the accepted course of events until the 11th of October 2010, when the American High Command reviewed video footage of the operation and realised that one of the Navy SEALs had in fact thrown a grenade into the gully that Linda was found in. This was a concerning discovery, as none of the SEALs had reported the employment of a grenade at any point during the operation. US General David Petraeus, who was the commander of coalition forces in Afghanistan at the time, commented that it was disturbing clearly not to have the correct facts the morning after the operation was conducted, and to be provided those later after the task force commander conducted further examination. We had about 6 different videos of the operation, 6 different platforms, and it was in the course of pulling the videos off a hard drive that it was very clear that there was a throwing motion and an explosion that followed that, and that a grenade had been employed. Based off the evidence found in the video footage, a joint British-American team was formed to determine the exact cause of Linda's death, and it was in December of 2010 that the results of this investigation were published. Secretary William Hague continues, "After the investigation, it is clear that Linda's injuries were caused by the grenade. It is a matter of concern that the facts of how Linda Norgrove died were not made clear immediately after the operation was carried out. It was only on later examination of the video footage that the possibility that a grenade was thrown became known to more senior officers. The investigation team found that the failure to disclose information that a grenade was thrown breached US military law. As a result, members of the rescue team have been disciplined for failing to provide a complete and full account of their actions in accordance with US military procedure." Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe so that you never miss one of my future videos.